Paul Phillips Sr. was such a dynamic person. His personality was so enveloping that that's who everybody remembers, even the older generation of white folks. That's who they remember. Paul Phillips Sr. was hard. He was a man of the earth. He was very fair. And I think it's safe to say that he really didn't see color, okay? Paul Phillips Sr. spoke fluent German. I mean, how does that happen? Only if you're interested in the community that you live in. He was not the first Phillips on the scene in this church. You know, my great-grandparents, his parents, are the ones that actually built the church. But Paul Phillips Sr. was such a dynamic personality within the community of Fredericksburg that he is the one that's recognized when we talk about the black community.
Came out on April the 6th of 1978.
Tammy and I, our favorite shows is the Texas Country Reporter, and we were watching this show about one Sunday morning about a black sculptor and some of the work that he was doing. And it occurred to me while I was watching it, wouldn't it be great to have a sculpture of Paul and Cora Phillips? Their names are on the historical marker, and it would be great to have one out front so people could get a visual of who these people were. And at the very end of the show, talking about Jonas Perkins, it said he lived in Fredericksburg. And so I was just kind of, my jaw dropped. And I thought to myself, you know, I have to get a hold of this person. I have to talk to him and see if he would be, first of all, willing to do a sculpture of Paul and Cora Phillips.
Before I just heard, "Are you a Phillips?" And I said, "No, I'm not a Phillips." And I would see the reaction to the fact that people had about him and the admiration that they had, and how I felt I would have gotten treated special if I'd have been a Phillips. I heard that this would be a good place. I get a 99-year lease on the place, and don't ever think it's yours. Just know that you're here renting this space for that long. And that I would, you know, get to make living entities out of clay. Bring people who made a significant contribution to making things better, make their lives a longing, lasting memorial. So yeah, I learned a lot about the whole setup because of the position he placed himself into. Because he could have moved somewhere else where a lot of people, I think, of color moved away as soon as they got old enough to leave. Yeah, that's the unseen forces. That's the unseen portion that just because your interest is an ingredient, it itself is an ingredient that's put into it. Stern person, the reason that he's respected because he respected himself. I see that. He respected himself and he loved what he was doing. He was very knowledgeable. And when I went to school, knowledge is power. That was the logo on the school, Thornton Township High School, knowledge is power. And he was being knowledgeable because he learned, because he wanted to learn. And there's nothing like a wannabe. He sees the church completed because men are fixers and they're doers, and he's only moved by her seemingly importance to have this done. This is my feeding. How do I feel? Now these are, I don't hear no voice that says this, but this is the feeling. He sees this community for what he loved about it. I think that's what he said. You gotta love about it. That's what I do. Him and I see the same thing. Otherwise, we'd go somewhere else. You see some old God. He's only come alive because he's there And when he talks about Doc Phillips, he doesn't say, "You mean that black guy?" He's not going to say that. He's going to say Doc Phillips. He might be, and you look at another picture of him in some other magazine or some other thing, isolated and as a Southern Texas guy, you would say all kinds of negative things that could, if you weren't from that perspective, you would assume because you were negatively assimilated into our vast understanding of love, of how we can care about people that are different from us. And they cared about him. And you could hear in his voice, I was a little boy. So that brings on this whole thing, not just about right now in Fredericksburg, but the way it was to him as a child. And him without her is not him. Oh, this is a balance. Here, you can, it's just that's the way it's set up. Especially when you have a life mate or helpmate or someone assisting you unseen, because there has to be someone that helped him. And when I further investigate, I will find out more that she did. I know she did a lot. And even when we speak about things in terms of the male, there's always that woman in the background that's either a campaign manager or whatever that pushes them over the top because they were championing their cause, and they only use that as a vehicle to make a statement. And I think that he was very much like that. And I think that even looking at them, I don't even have to, you see she's all roughed in there, but the statues to me feel happier together than they do apart. They feel more completed as a couple. And with Dr. Phillips, the same thing. Because I had heard this background story from somebody like Rhodey, who I would consider the salt of the earth. He's the last refuge of what Fredericksburg was, to have your kids working with right there with you on a daily scale, and have the community being a part of what it was. And I just admired that. I wanted that for my family. I wanted that for my kids. I wanted to have that more so than I was worried about whether I'd be the only black guy here.
When I heard about Jonas Perkins and the work that he does and how well known his artwork is throughout the United States and even in throughout the world in some places, it occurred to me that not only am I preserving history in this process, in this project, we're continuing history. There is a legacy of the blacks in Fredericksburg.
No, not really. The one that really got me first noticed was Richard Nixon when he was in office, when I was still living in Chicago. Well, what you've seen lately or right in front of you, yeah, maybe so. There's been here lately. That's a nuance. But let's face it, there are not many black monuments in America. There are not any black monuments outside of Martin Luther King Jr., hardly. And to get a monument or get somebody to want to make a monument of a black person is a big deal. It's a big deal. That's why Gorton is sitting up there like he is, and he's not finished. It's not because they don't have the money, it's because of politics. You can't get that, and that's why we got a unique thing here, a unique setup. And we're like the defiant ones chained together. Our legacies are tied together. We are tied together.
not met at the time, but having heard about Jonas Perkins, it just opened up a new avenue for me to be able to make this happen and to get the information about this church out here. But it also made me change my paradigm, change my perspective on what was going on here at the church. Because instead of just doing it for the sake of remembering my heritage and the family members in my family, Jonas introduced a new variable into the equation. When I do it now, I see it as almost as a continuation of the Black history in Fredericksburg. It's not big, it's not overwhelming, but it is an undeniable thread that began 5 generations ago and hopefully will continue throughout the generations coming forward.